and we're filming just a little video which really has nothing to do with anything and might not contain much of gameplay, but to show you us learning kind of how to play. Well, we're doing Iron Ships, Wooden Men. Wooden Ships and Iron Men. It's one of the two. Iron Ships and Wooden Men is Civil War. So this is a felt mat thing that Tom got, and he got these hexes put on here because the game originally is in hexes. If you're not too familiar, here comes your Whiplash. He's got the board game. Originally it is a board game, but he's got a lot of these great miniatures. So the idea was to take that felt, and those are 1-inch hexes, or 1.5?
I think they're 1.5 inches.
About 1.5-inch hexes, and kind of convert this little board for counters, and one counter fits on 2 hexes. And so now the idea is we're going to take that whole game as it's played and now use his miniatures, which are scaled, or well, the hexes were scaled so that the miniature base will now fit on 2 hexes. So he just took that map and blew it up. And so now what we're doing is previously when we played without the hexes, he did take a game, Heart of Oak, I think.
Heart of Oak.
Heart of Oak.
Selling rules.
That had a very interesting moving mechanic that involved math and geometry and science. But now that you put it to the hex table, you can just play the entirety of the rules for Wooden Ships and Iron Men. And so that's kind of what we're doing. So again, this won't be like a full battle report, but just a little, hey, here's some things that we're doing, and here's what it looks like. So we're going to have the American USS
Constellation.
Oh, Constellation, that's right, because we're doing the frigates right now.
The Yankee Racehorse.
Ooh, a Yankee Racehorse versus a French cheese-eating Insurgent. Very, very positive names. Oh, wait a minute, Insurgent. Are we the baddies in this game?
You might be.
Oh, with a name like Insurgent, I think we're the baddies this time. Now, I am expected to get a... Wait, oh, that's right, we rolled off. I was like, wait, why did I get stuck with the baddies? Because we rolled and I lost. So this here, without explaining too much of the game, because I don't want to show you too much that I don't really quite remember or understand yet, but basically, the American has the far superior ship in this engagement, so I don't expect much happening out of me for this time, but I'm going to call this a learning opportunity. So if I lose, it's fine, because it's all for science. Alright kids, that's good for now. Thanks. So just to touch in here, we did a first playthrough. Worked out good. I think it worked fine. I'll explain some of the things I enjoyed about the rules and why the hexes worked out pretty good. So first of all, it was an American victory. I didn't read the scenario that we played, but historically this played out very similar to what really happened. The American ship got a mobility kill. It just got in close enough that it carronaded, grape shots, the whole 9 yards, and just wrecked the rigging on the French ship. And then because of the way I rolled to where I got 1 gun kill on his ship, which probably killed a few people. Historically, that's what happened. The Americans lost like 3 folks. And then after being raked a couple times, the French lost a mast, which I lost a mast just based on how I roll dice. And that was basically a mobility kill. So we historically recreated that. Now, with this, I'll tell you, it's a little bit deceptive in how things work. For those that are already familiar with the rules, forgive me for poorly explaining, but essentially we've got our range chart here, and when we started, we were about 18 hexes apart from each other, so pretty far across. And there's really no good shooting ranges with our gun factors, because I've got 4 gun factors. I think he had 6 gun factors. He was a more heavily armed, and he even had like 6 carronades, so very, very heavily armed frigate compared to what I had. So yeah, so when I'm looking here, just to have a chance at something, I need to start on table, 3 hexes away. So we actually spent quite a bit of time sailing towards each other. The thing is, you don't want to get close, because then there's going to be some damage. But so there's really not much of a sweet spot. You're either like right up close to him or kind of far away. But basically, once we got in range, then he was able just to really kind of unload. But yeah, that didn't work out so good. So, but here's what I like though on the moving. So you've got your ship here, and depending on if you're in irons or whatever they call that, and then running with the wind, or you've got the wind trailing you there directly into it, you got your two numbers based on your ship type. So I've got a 4 here when I'm going kind of with the wind, 3 if it's directly behind me, and then I've got a 1 if I'm going into the wind, 0 if you're going directly into the wind, and a number in parentheses if you're full sail. So that full sails, that's critical to this because, whoop, he's looking for something.
No, I got it. I mean,
Oh, okay.
I am looking for something.
You're looking for something he's got. So when you're deciding what you want to do, full sails or not full sails is very important because one, that affects your overall movement. But when your opponent shoots at you, like Tom likes to shoot at my ships, you take double the rigging damage when you get a rigging hit, and that's what killed me. We were doing full sails for a while, trying to get close, and then just combat ruined me there. And but so here's what I like about you plot your movement, and I like this because, for example, when I'm thinking post captain in mind, when you plot your movement in that one, even as you make your turn, as you're turning towards, like if you're turning into the wind, like maybe you want to tack, the fact that you start here and then you say, well, I've got 7 movement points, I'm going to put all my move points into turning. As you turn into the wind, there's no bleed off. Here, you actually have to plot just a little bit, but it's very easy, the potential bleed off. So if you're starting in an advantageous with the wind in your favor, and I got full sails, it says I have 7 movement points. Well, then what I do is if I turn into the wind, then I only have 2 movement points with full sails. So I can make one use, like maybe go forward in favor with the wind, like maybe 5, and then when you turn, that costs 1 of your movement points, and then because I'm only allowed 2 movement points, I would lose a whole bunch of my movement points, my excess movement points. So you'd want to move with the wind as much as possible, and then when you turn, then you'd only have like maybe 1 forward. So this actually takes into account during your turn the fact that you're either going to lose wind, or if you start off going into the wind, and let's say I'm full sails with 2 movement points, if I turn, even though the wind is blowing with me, the fact that my inertia from the first section and I turned to favorable, I still only had a maximum of 2 movement points, but I could use all those movement points because favorably with the wind at full sails I had 7. So it's a nice simple system to account for the fact that as you're turning towards the wind, some of that bleeds off because as you get closer into the wind, it's blowing against you, it slows down. It's just a really nice little simple system. Not as complicated as I thought it would be. But then I just lost. I didn't lose any crew, surprisingly, or hull, but he just totally, it was all rigging. I think he got a gun. Yeah, he did destroy a carronade. I forgot to mark off the carronade, but it was like.
I don't think he had to.
I
got a gun, but I fired chain shot, and it would.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
on the gun
he
itself.
did chain shot. That's what it was. Chain shot, and it was just.
He might have had some minor wounds that didn't do anything to the crew.
Yeah. Their pride more than anything.
Yeah.
But what we did was, because I did take
there's some French rigging right there that fell over the side.
Yeah, we grabbed a little twig from the Ostranova game that we played, but then he went and actually found a little mast that he could drop down there. Now, with the mast, in this particular game, the wind was a gale situation, so it was pretty strong winds. We had -1 movement for the wind anyway, and then when the mast dropped, of course, because the way I roll, it didn't fall away clean, so it was still attached to the ship. So then that prevented all firing, because the rule says that that mast and all that sail causes it to keel a little bit, so I couldn't shoot accurately out either side, can't turn, so I was stuck going forward. But he had enough rigging kills that I had -1 for rigging, -1 because I'm dragging a mast and a sail, -1 because of the wind, so I had -3. So on a good day, I could move if I wanted 1 hex forward, no turning. This was pretty much a sitting duck at this point. because he could easily just come around, actually get a raking shot if he wanted. Even if I didn't move, yeah, it was bad. But anyway, all in all, I'd say that rule set works out pretty good with the hexes. You don't have, I think maybe the only thing somebody might complain about is you don't have quite the analogous amount of movement, those very needed fractions of movement in between, because you're limited by what the hex gives you in 60 degrees. But in actuality, it played, I think, just fine. My first time running through, though, I wasn't thinking about that. And when you do turn, I mean, it's a rather drastic as you turn. I mean, you turn your ship a lot. And I overturned on my first playthrough, but then once you realize that, yeah, you got to make sure a turn is what you want to do, because it's quite a bit. But all in all, I think this worked out just fine for the hexes. What did you think so far?
Oh, I have had this game for a good, I would think, 40 years now. Maybe I exaggerate a bit. Call it 35.
Okay.
I remember, the first time I bought this game was in 1976, and it was the Bicentennial game put out by Avalon Hill. And I used to play it with, I don't even think I was in high school yet. And it was a fun game to play back then when we were just young teenagers, like 12 years old. And as a game itself, it's still a fun game to play 35 years plus later.
Yeah, even the record keeping wasn't difficult, because we played his hybrid Heart of Oak and the Heart of Oak for the movement, but with the hexes and the plotting, this actually worked out very easily as well. You just marked what shot you had loaded in for either side of your cannons, and then when you fired them, your broadside just marked your first broadside, and then what you reload it with, plot your movement, which is just real simple as well, like how many hexes forward, if you left or right, and then based on wind attitude after you make that turn, how many hexes you have left to do. You don't even have to move up to the full amount. And then we got note sections. So one thing we started to notate was either no full sail or full sail, because with one-on-one game where we're just kind of sitting like 2 feet across from each other kind of a thing, you do want to be, I think, a little sneaky with if you're doing full sails or not, because they really are an important part of the game. But anyway, just put a little notation what you want to do. Yeah, real simple. We crossed out based on ship type, the boxes not being used as far as guns, carronades, rigging. Yeah, I would say plays really well. And I am trying to compare it with Post Captain, because I went out of my way to spend the $35 on Post Captain, so I don't want to feel like I wasted my money there. But I think they both have similar. The only difference between Post Captain so far, Post Captain doesn't use plotted movement. When it's your move segment and you have initiative, you decide what you want to do, and then your opponent will get to move based on that. So it's not pre-plotted. It lets you. It's on the fly, But I kind of do like the plotted, because it's very disappointing when you plot and you think you've got your opponent out rigged, and then as Tom said, oh, I just waited for this spider to get into my nest and then blew all his rigging out. And I was like, well, okay, cool.
All right.
Yep.
Well, since we've got this one game down,
yeah, we'll do another.
Let's do another one, and we're not going to have to change very much, because guess what? The next game is the Constellation versus the Vengeance, another French frigate.
Lovely. All right. Well, let's do it, French. We'll be back. Okay. So this time we're on a completely different game. He's still using his Constellation, and this time I've beefed up to the what was it? Revenge something.
Vengeance.
Oh, the Vengeance this time. So I've got the Vengeance. It is a little beefier, a little bit more crew. It has a little bit more hull, same amount of rigging, but I did get more firepower. So I got 6 guns per side, and then I've got 4 carronades, which has helped. But already with the dice rolling, I'm continuing to roll some 1s. So I've only caused one rigging, and I think in a crew, and then he's already done a gun shot, so he's killed a carronade. He's done 2 crew hits and a hull. So he's got, just a little bit more on me. But I thought this time we'd bust out the puffs of smoke, but since we're about to move, that will clear out. But I thought we'd get a nice little action shot real quick as they fire at each other. And yeah, so we're just moving on to the next game. All right, thanks for tuning in. Bye. So here we finally moved into essentially a point-blank situation, and I figured that deserved more smoke since that was full broadsides. Now, the rules say you count the closest, so even though we have potentially the 4 guns and the aft, even though this is further apart, you don't have to make like separate rolls for the aft, you just pick the closest, and then they all fire at that close. So this counts as a full broadside at point blank. And he destroyed another gun. So I'm down 2 guns, but I'm still rolling on the 7 to 9 table for a while. At point blank, that's no different than what he has at full. But this last volley, I lost another gun. He rolled a 1. This time I rolled, I think, a 5 a 5. And I got a hull, a rigging, and a crew. So the exchange was better. However, the guns are still pretty important. So he's coming away. If I want to keep shooting from that side, my other side is still good. So
Risky.
yeah, it's risky. But I'm just kind of stuck here. So unless we do something, we're going to collide. So we're playing a game of chicken right now, and we are plotted down for our movement. So we're gonna play out a little bit, but I just wanted to show you. It looks better with more smoke. So there we are. Thanks.
Right.
Okay, just something of interest. We both turned opposite. So he made a left and I made a right turn, and we're going to read through the rules and kind of just discuss out loud while you listen to us maybe how this would work. But I thought you might find that interesting because we played a chicken and neither one of us knew we would do that. And so what page were you, sir?
I'm on page 4.
Okay.
Section C. Gotta
Division.
read that. Of
Okay.
course, I've got to make a pit stop first.
Oh, he's making a pit stop.
Captain walks to the fantail, has
Yeah.
them open one of the gun ports off the stern, and that feels good.
Everybody takes a pause while the captain drops his load there. Okay, so ships that cross the course or position of other ships, enemy or friendly, during the movement phase may collide with the other ship. That's kind of where we're at right now. Backsides are colliding. To see if ships have collided, the players must retrace the courses of those ships involved 1 hex at a time. Remember that a 60-degree turn counts the same as a hex moved into. If 2 or more ships are found to be in the same hex at the same time in their move, a collision takes place. Alright, well, we did backtrace because we haven't moved forward yet. We just simply turned. And you turn at the bow. So at the front of the ship, you pivot. That's the pivot point. So he pivoted to the right, so that swung his backside to the right. I was pivoting to the left, so that swung my backside to the left. And they collided in this common hex is where I guess you could say they're colliding. Only one ship can actually remain in the collision hex. If the bow or stern of one ship is in the hex at the same point in movement, when 1 or more other ships attempt to enter that hex, the ship occupying the hex remains. The other ship moved back to the hex they occupied just prior to the collision. If the bow or stern of one ship is in the hex at the same point in movement when 1 or more other ships attempt to enter the hex, the problem is this is simultaneous movement. If the stern of a ship enters a hex in a turning maneuver at the same point in the movement phase as the bow. So far this is talking like bow to stern. I'm looking for if it says stern to stern. The bow enters, the turning ship moves back to its previous position. All of the cases that might occur. So this is it here. In all other cases that might occur, roll a die for each ship involved and let High Man decide which ship must occupy the contested hex. Ships will drift into a new hex on the last move of the phase. Once a collision has occurred and the position of the collided ships have been determined, all movement ends for the ships involved, even if their logs have been plotted for further movement. Log notation must be changed to correspond with the actual move. When a collision occurs, the rigging of the involved ships may entangle and be fouled, locking the ships together. For each collision, one of the involved players must roll a die. The result is found on the fouling table and is implemented immediately. If the result is ships not fouled, they may continue to move normally the next movement phase. Fouled ships cannot move or turn in place on the second movement phase. After fouling, they must drift. Ships that are fouled may perform boarding maneuvers and melee that turn and or any or all subsequent turns that may remain fouled. The fact that a ship is fouled is indicated in the notes section. Now, it doesn't say they can't shoot. I didn't see that part, so I would talk that over with Tom. There's a chance that they would be fouled next to each other and then just unloading into one another. So, based on section 2 there, so under collision C, point 2, one ship can actually remain in the collision hex, right? If the bow or stern of one ship is in the hex at the same point in movement, when another one or more other ships attempt to enter that hex, the ship occupying the hex remains. The other ship move back. So that's the bow or stern of one ship. If the stern of a ship enters a hex in a turning maneuver, so that's in the turning maneuver at the same point in the movement phase as the bow. So we didn't do stern to bow. That's why I think we're going to look at this part that says, in all other cases that might occur, because it's not going bow to bow or bow to stern. In all other cases that might occur, roll a die for each ship involved and let the high man decide which ship must occupy the contested hex. So only one can be in there. So we...
All right, let's see.
Because, yeah.
we're both turning into each other.
Yeah, see, that's what I was trying to figure out from here. So, this is talking about to see if they've collided basically after they move. And the 60-degree turn counts the same as a hex moved into. So we're in the same hex. Only one ship can be there. And it says here, now see, this is where it says here, if the bow or stern, which this would be sterns, of one ship is in the hex at the same point in movement when one or more other ships attempt to enter that hex, the ship occupying the hex remains. But see, we both at the same time.
Then.
Right. So the other ship would move back to the hex they occupied just prior to the collision. Then it says here, if the stern of the ship enters a hex in a turning maneuver at the same point in the movement phase as the bow of another ship. But see, we didn't do stern to bow either, or bow to bow, or anything like that. So that's why I was looking at that point that says, in all other cases that might occur, which I think stern to stir, roll a die, and then the high die decides who occupies and who gets pushed back to their original spot. Tom's reading it too. He understands rules better than me.
All right, well, let's put them back the way they started.
Okay. So, and I didn't get to shift much, but I think I was here, and then you were here? Because we were right there touching each other.
Yeah, because I was going L.
Right, you were going to swing to your left. Oh, you were going L? I thought we were doing right. Oh.
L to me.
Okay, L to you. I
don't know if I moved it forward by one or not. But
no, because we were touching. Because you would have been like here, and we were touching already. I don't think you had moved yet. You just had done your turn.
Oh, because we fired from one out.
Right. So this is where we were. And
so
then
I was going L, and you were going R. Only one of us can occupy that spot.
right.
And so now we're going to find out who's going to occupy that spot.
And my understanding is based on the fact that we're not doing that. The way that we're doing it would be putting them stern to stern in there. We would roll a high die to see who goes. High man decides. So I'm going to back that up a little bit.
All right.
Well, I'm going to roll in here. Okay, he rolled a
You're gonna
1.
be a high one again.
I finally roll a 6. Well, I'm going to be the... Well, now I have to decide what's best for me. Because we're entangled either way.
Because you'll go there.
Yep.
Because you'll decide.
Or you'll go.
I'll go there.
It like really doesn't matter. So I'll just go. But we're still the same distance. It's still But now we have to check for fouling and all that
All right,
goodness.
so
So that's what we've decided to do, team.
it says ships will drift into a new hex on the last move of the phase.
It's
I don't know if that means we'll just drift forward by one. Who the heck knows? But anyway, once a collision has occurred and the position of the colliding ships has been determined, which we've done, all movement ends for the ships involved. Even if the ship's logs have been plotted for further movement, when the collision occurs, the rigging of the involved ships may entangle and be fouled, locking the ships together. For each collision, one of the involved players must roll a die. The result is found on the following table and is implemented immediately.
Yep.
If they're not fouled, then they may continue to move normally in the next movement phase.
Was the fouling table on here?
That's on
Destroyed ammunition, or is it on the back of the book?
foul rigging tables.
Yeah, it's on the back of the chart. Okay, good. Oh, it's on
So
the
are
back.
you feeling lucky?
You know, based on what we just rolled, let me see, what do we need? Is it a high number we want?
1 to 3, they're fouled. 4 to 6, they're not.
Oh, you know what? So far you've been a consistent winner.
Suck ass, like, yeah, I've been rolling a lot of ones.
Yeah, actually today Tom's dice rolls are just about as mine. So go for it, Tom. Let's see what you get.
Okay, here we go. Collision position's been determined.
A fun. I knew he'd get it. So it says here ships are not fouled. So
Ships are
we're good.
not fouled.
So that actually did. Now I was expecting something to say there'd be hull damage or something, but I guess I don't see that. I didn't see that at all.
All right, so the
All right.
movement stopped there.
Yep. Then we would have to backlog the movement.
Yeah, there is none.
So
after that point.
basically, I would just say I'd get rid of that, and all I did was an R. Because you still got to make the log match what your movement actually occurred. Well, there you go, team. That was exciting. That's been the most exciting thing we've done there. So I thought I'd share that with you. All right, cool. We'll talk to you again later. Bye.
The rigging so badly that they just ran and escaped, but sank later on because the hull was so badly tore up.
Right.
And so you did tear up the rigging.
I did
That
tear up
last
the rigging.
that last hit in my rigging took out another section, so I'd have been crawling along. In theory, I was crawling along. You know, the most I was trying to do is tack off the wind so I can get going at 2.
Right.
You could have gotten away.
Yeah, I thought about that. I was like,
You
I
could have just extended out, and I couldn't have chased you down.
Yeah, because he got down. So basically, to summarize, the French ship was just obliterated. He did get 2 crits on me, which did 10 hull hits between the 2 crits. He had already destroyed all my hull when he got that last crit and did 5 more hull. So that sucker's gone. Yes, I could have pulled away, but since we're just doing a one-on-one kind of a thing, I will say that the French did bring more firepower, but I kept misjudging turns and a lot of times just bringing just my 4 guns instead of like a whole broadside. And he was able to just really lay into the hull. I think one thing that helped is his elite crew.
That certainly did make a big difference.
It does. It's amazing in this game how where like 1 table difference, even 2 table differences, you were consistently rolling on the table 4.
And when you were firing chain, you were on 3.
Chain helped, but I was hitting rigging, which
But, there were the other times where you were, as you pointed out, because you were only getting the bow or stern guns that
Yeah.
you were down to 1 table several times instead of at the 3.
Right.
And
That makes a difference. Yeah, it makes a difference. 1 or 2 points makes a huge difference in your damage rolls here. But I mean, so it's nice we had a semi-historical outcome. I mean, I sunk either way, and I shot a lot
in
of your
both
rigging.
games.
But yeah, so that's interesting.
so the interesting thing here is once I made the determination what I was firing at, I didn't go back and forth between the hull and rigging. So like in the last game, I started on the rigging and stayed on it.
And that
And in
worked.
this game, I said, all right, he's got more firepower this time out, and I'm going to need to get some of those guns out of there. Went with the hull, and I stayed with it.
That worked good. This time I did a mixture because my chances at rigging damage were better, so I guess I could have stayed. I didn't realize I had done that much rigging where you had to make 2 rolls. I had no idea.
You were cutting them up.
I didn't know that. If I had been asking, because I guess I could have been looking at your ship, like people would have been like, oh yeah, just keep shooting the rigging. But when I switched to the hull, because I thought that might actually do something, I was hoping to get some gun hits, but my firepower without that extra from the chain, I mean, that and I roll not super well sometimes. I rolled a 6 on that last part, but I should have stuck with rigging, because at least with rigging there appears to be crits on most of the numbers you roll.
Well, yeah, I don't know. There could be, there could be
Rake
some effects.
There's a rake if you had a rake, but a 3, no effect. But from 4 on, well, 5 had nothing. 6, 7, it alternates. It looks like 8 had or 9 had nothing for either. 11 had nothing.
I would have liked to get a crit number 11 on the hull.
Magazine may explode. You sure would have.
But I mean, 12 wouldn't have been bad either.
Well, I'm sure a lot of that.
I couldn't get there anyway. I didn't have enough firepower. I had, 4 table and a D6.
It's an interesting crit table. I didn't realize that it kind of alternates on what happens for crits between rigging and hull. But if I had known I was doing that good with rigging, because I could have just, once I got rid of your ability to go full sail, I could have just left.
You could have said,
and maintained some dignity.
Out of here.
Yeah, I would have felt very vindictive if your mast had fouled your ship. Then I would have felt better.
So in this case, vengeance is mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Oh, I see what you did there. Because the ship name.
How about that?
All right. Overall, though, now that I understand the hexes better, I just have to learn how to captain better. I don't think this is too bad moving with the hexes, and the movement plotting seems simplified compared to using the compass rose from a full table. It is easier, but I think it works. You don't get the same analogous subtleties and movements.
The nuances there. Yeah. See, the Heart of Oak game is very, very focused on the sailing aspect of that at the Age of Sail.
Right.
And it is not as focused on the gunnery part.
Okay.
So, Wooden Ships and Iron Men it's got good gunnery charts. They feel good. I feel like I'm getting kind of a historical game out of it, but I don't have the nuance of being able to sail closer to the wind than maybe my opponent. I don't have that nuance where you might have a green crew and a sloppy kind of ship. Well, I guess they called them hookers in the days. And I could have a smart ship, and I can just sail that much closer to the wind, to kind of cut your angles off. That's completely glossed over.
Yeah, it is. So, I guess if you wanted to play a lot of ships, this might actually be, well, it seems like this is the easier way to go. Easier to manage multiple ships and they're moving and plotting.
Yeah, it is, because they're...
But, it's just...
You're going to form line of battle and, pound away at each other. This is a little bit more about maneuver when you're doing these frigate actions.
Yeah.
But if in a line of battle, this wouldn't be going on. We'd be lining up and trying to maximize the amount of gun factors we can get on each other, and wouldn't be doing quite as much of the maneuvering here, if any at all. The maneuvering we would do would be, how do we close the range with the least amount of damage to ourselves to get in and just blast away at each other.
Yeah.
And there you have it.
Yeah.
Constellation comes out on top again.
It does. Yeah, no, that went pretty good. I don't know what we want to do for next week, but if you want, one of these weeks we could give Post Captain its shot.
Is that a board game too?
Nope.
Oh,
it's a minis.
Moving on the table.
Yep.
So what we got is We got a board game that we're playing with miniatures now, and then we'll possibly go to a miniatures game with miniatures.
Yeah, miniatures with miniatures. Yeah, but the Post Captain though, it's the same company that did the rules for General Quarters. So I mean, if you we've already got this similar gunnery chart that we're used to, rolling a bunch of die 12s at different ranges and stuff like that. Plus, they have a simple movement system too, which I'll probably show you. I can bring it even if we don't play it. But I like these Age of Sail games, and I think this one's pretty good.
Yeah, this is nice. It's a classic, right? And people still play it. So it didn't stay a classic for being a poor game.
Right.
It's a classic because it's got some good mechanics to it.
Yeah, not too shabby seeing it played out. And all not that complicated with tracking the damage and whatnot, the pull sheets. This isn't the sheet we used before, is it? For
Yeah, it's almost the same one.
Almost
They
the
are
same.
they are derivatives of that same very thing.
Yeah. All right, well that's good. But anyway, it wasn't like a full battle report, just sharing some thoughts on the game here we're trying out, and if you guys like it, you can let us know. Maybe we'll play some more. But we were talking about doing Vibisc.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Yep, so we finished Ostronovo. I did post, I almost posted part 1 for that. I think Dave wanted to advertise that one, but I'll just put this up as a fun one. So if you guys do like this, maybe we'll do a full showing you the game in action or something like that. But that's it for now. We're going to clean up. Talk to you later. Bye.